Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Lesson 43 in A Course in Miracles. Today's lesson states, God is my source. I cannot see apart from him. Perception is not an attribute of God. His is the realm of knowledge, yet he has created the Holy Spirit as the mediator between perception and knowledge. Without this link with God, perception would have replaced knowledge forever in your mind. With this link with God, perception will become so changed and purified that it will lead to knowledge. That is the function as the Holy Spirit sees it. Therefore, that is its function in truth. In God, you cannot see. Perception has no function in God and does not exist. Yet, in salvation, which is the undoing of what never was, perception has a mighty purpose. Made by the Son of God for an unholy purpose, it must become the means for the restoration of his holiness to his awareness. Perception has no meaning, yet does the Holy Spirit give it meaning, give it a meaning very close to God's. Healed perception becomes the mean by which the Son of God forgives his brother, and thus forgives himself. You cannot see apart from God because you cannot be apart from God. Whatever you do in him, because whatever you think with his mind. If vision is real, and it is real to the extent to which it shares the Holy Spirit's purpose, then you cannot see apart from God. 3 5-minute practice periods are required today, one as early and one as late as possible in the day. The third may be undertaken at the most convenient and suitable time that circumstances and readiness permit. At the beginning of these practice periods, repeat the idea for today to yourself with eyes open. Then glance around you for a short time, applying the idea specifically to what you see. 4 or 5 subjects for this phase of practice period are sufficient. You might say, for example, God is my source. I cannot see this desk apart from him. God is my source. I cannot see this picture apart from him. Although this part of the exercise period should be relatively short, be sure that you select the subjects for this phase of practice indiscriminately, without self-directed inclusion or exclusion. For the second and longer phase, close your eyes, repeat today's idea again, and then let whatever relevant thoughts occur to you to add to the idea in your own personal way. Thoughts such as, I see through the eyes of forgiveness. I see the world as blessed. The world can show me myself. I see my own thoughts, which are like God's. Any thought related more or less directly to today's idea is suitable. The thoughts need not bear any obvious relationship to the idea, but they should not be in opposition to it. If you find your mind wandering, if you begin to be aware of thoughts which are clearly out of accord with today's idea, or if you seem to be unable to think of anything, open your eyes. Repeat the first phase of the exercise period and then attempt the second phase again. Do not allow any protracted period to occur in which you become preoccupied with irrelevant thoughts. Return to the first phase of the exercises as often as necessary to prevent this. In applying today's idea in the shorter practice periods, the form may vary according to the circumstances and situations in which you find yourself during the day. When you are with someone else, for example, try to remember to tell him silently, God is my source. I cannot see you apart from God. This form is equally applicable to strangers as it is to those you think are closer to you. In fact, try to make no distinctions of this at all. Today's idea should also be applied throughout the day to various situations and events that may occur, particularly to those which seem to distress you in any way. For this purpose, apply the idea in this form. God is my source. I cannot see this apart from him. If no particular subject presents itself to your awareness at that time, merely repeat the idea in its original form. Try today not to allow any long periods of time to slip by without remembering today's idea, and thus remembering your function. And that is the end of Lesson 43. God is my source. I cannot see apart from him. Imagine if you could see the world through the eyes of God at all times. Imagine what the world would be like, again, if we saw it through God's eyes. Because God is in all things, because there's love and light in all things, it is likely that we would eliminate the source of wars and attacks and discrimination or biases. We may still own the contrast. We may still have our all own individual expressions of life and love, but we would not have to judge one another if they are different than our own. We would not have to compare ourselves to anyone else. We could simply see all things, all experiences through the eyes of love, through the power of understanding, through the power of honoring and appreciation. We would feel true gratitude for every experience that we had, and we would not need to make things like physical death a negative, bad, or dark experience. We would understand and celebrate that lessons were learned and we were graduating from this physical body and we were returning to the real essence of our source. And so when you look at things today, when you look at the clouds, when you look at the weather, when you look at other people, look and see if you can acknowledge that God is your source. What would God see if he were looking at this situation? Even if it's an uncomfortable situation, what are the opportunities that are there for love? Not what are the problems, what are the disconnects, who is at fault, but where is the opportunity for love in each and every moment? And then use those opportunities to allow God to work through you, to speak through you, and to simply hold a presence through you. Let's go on to Tina Spalding's channelings. You are blessed beings indeed. I am that one you know as Jesus. It is important for you to see that God is your source. It is the miraculous, benevolent, life-giving energy and power of your vital life force. You are not a random occurrence in the universe. You are designed and specifically created by that one which you call God. Now you have come down into separation and you have forgotten who and what you are and why you are here. That is why you are doing these lessons, to remind you of your sanctity and the unique place you hold in the mind of God. You are not more special than anyone else, but as a unique manifestation of the mind of God. It is important for you to remember that you have particular qualities that will become more evident as you remove untrue ideas and confusions from your mind. Many of you struggle with this. You wonder about your purpose. You wish you could have a better job or some inspired career to fulfill your life. These things become more apparent as you clean up the detritus and garbage from your mind. That is something logical to think about. If you have too many untrue ideas, contamination in the mind, you won't clearly receive the guidance you need to make decisions. That is why so many of you have confused lives, unhealthy bodies, or distorted and dysfunctional relationships. You have too many things in your mind that confuse you because they are not true, yet you act as if they are true. You think you are a body, and you think that you will die when your body dies. That is not true. You are not a body. You enliven the body. You are the creator of the body in the sense that it cannot exist without you. You do not need it. However, and this will become a more comfortable belief and idea for you as you go through these lessons and practice them as you have been guided. You are a beautiful idea in the mind of God. You have always been, and you will always be. The body comes and goes. It is not who you are. Do not think it is. In my earthly incarnation, I went to the cross to prove I was not the body that people thought I was. I reached the point in my evolution where I knew this, and I had no contaminating ideas in my mind that caused me suffering, disconnected me from my Father, or caused me to fear. I went through that experience to demonstrate my ability to overcome the physical and material world, and that is what we are working toward. Everything I did, you too can do as you evolve, clarify, and walk closer to love. I am that one you know as Jesus. We do not expect you to believe this wholeheartedly, but we tell you to remind yourself that you are indeed the same as me. I am merely your older brother who has walked farther and for much longer on the road toward love. I call you to come with me. I call you to walk with me on that road, for that road has no suffering. I am that one you know as Jesus. We will see you again tomorrow. And that is the end of Tina Spalding's channelings. We are not our bodies. We enliven our bodies. We give life to the physical material that becomes our body. And if you look in our world, you can see the evidence that we are not our bodies and that we do not need our bodies to live a full life. I think of Stephen Hawking as one of the greatest examples, and I refer to him often. His body was not functional, if you will, in many of our eyes. He had a condition that did not allow his body to function as an able-bodied individual. He didn't get up and run around, and yet his body was still alive. His body was able to still function, and he was able to create so many tools and so many ideas that it is just mind-boggling and awe-inspiring to me to realize how much he did through the use of his body in a way that we could understand, but without the use of his body. He came in a tangible form and yet showed us in a way that perhaps modern times might find more believable than did Jesus dying on the cross. When we look at people who go into combat and lose arms and legs, they continue to function. Even when we lose the body, when we lose the function of the body, when we lose physical parts of the body, when we have surgeries that take parts of our body out, we have transplant in which we exchange body parts. If we were our bodies, none of that could take place because we would not be able to take from one and give to another. Something would happen to the other person. If we were our bodies, we would lose our arms, our legs, our functions, and we would no longer be able to live a full life or function to the highest degree. And yet we do all of those things. And when we feel other people who have passed, who have left their physical bodies, when we see those signs of them, when we hear the song as we've been thinking of them, when we get the warm touch on our shoulder, we know that we still exist, even without our bodies. Why? Because God is our source. We cannot see, we cannot truly see without Him. All of the fear that we are witnessing is our imagination. It's our what-if scenario. It's the nightmares that we are creating in our own minds. When we surrender that to the Holy Spirit can use that and help us correct those and see again through the eyes of love. I promise you it will change the way that you see and experience your life if you can begin to see through the eyes of love. It will not happen 100% of the time, but I will tell you it will improve your life. Practice this, make use of it, and surrender to the idea that you are so much more than the physical body that you reside in. Have a great day, everyone. I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.